Imagine what 1 million healthcare professionals could do if they work together to shape the future of our healthcare industry. Introducing the Global Health Impact Network, a clinician-driven, collaborative network of communities focused on healthcare innovation. Through intra-organizational, intra-community, and inter-community collaboration, GHIN enables healthcare professionals to become leaders in healthcare innovation at the precipice of the evolving digital healthcare revolution. Clinicians, C-suite administrators, and others can actively participate in all aspects of the healthcare continuum. Healthcare organizations, including hospitals, academic institutions, and nonprofits, can securely and safely share their ideas and innovations on our platform so that healthcare professionals can create a future of improved access to healthcare, improved care delivery efficiency, and safety while decreasing the spiraling healthcare costs. A pediatrician can interact with top experts to access and learn best practices when approaching pediatric oncology or chronic disease management. A doctor can engage with early-stage healthcare technology companies through our partnership with the Global Health Impact Fund. No matter the purpose, every member has a wide variety of opportunities to ensure active involvement. Please contact us if you are interested in joining our growing clinician-driven global healthcare innovation network. Together, we can shape the evolving digital healthcare revolution. The Global Health Impact Network. Imagine the possibilities.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Global Health Impact Network Summit. I'm your host, Martin Eels. First of all, let me thank every single one of you for coming today. We do have some very amazing panels coming up. So what we're going to do today is we will do an introduction to the Global Health Impact Fund and the Global Health Impact Network with Dr. Goldman. This will be followed on by a talk with Dr. Alex Kahana with Blockchain and Health Tech. Then we'll move on to a physician burnout panel with Penny Sempel and Dyke Drummond. After that, we'll have Bob Sweeney talking about the education part of Global Health Impact Network, followed by the future of telehealth with some very amazing panelists on this discussion. And then we'll talk about life science and med labs with Dr. Ellie Lee. And we'll finish today with a couple of startup presentations from some very amazing startups that will be going through the Med Labs Accelerator. So I'm not going to keep you guys waiting. Let's jump into the very first talk. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Dr. Gary Goldman, the founder of Global Health Impact Network and the founder principal of the Global Health Impact Fund. Gary, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, everybody. And I guess in some places it's morning, some places it's afternoon, some places it's evening, given that this is a virtual as well as a live global conference. I'd like to welcome you all to the GHIN Global Summit for 2021. Global Health Impact Fund and Global Health Impact Network are also sponsors for the Innovator MD Conference, which will follow this conference. My name is Dr. Gary Goldman. I've been in healthcare for about 30 years. I started my career as a dentist, then became a physician and a practicing anesthesiologist. I've been practicing at the same institution for the last 35 years. In the early 90s, I started my first entrepreneurial endeavor. And that was at a time when the tech bubble was growing and the internet was just a new concept. The Yahoo portal had just come out. We were using 56K modem dial-ups, and any business idea that you put a .I in front of, you could raise capital for and develop a business plan. So it was kind of an ideal time to start my career. It was the true beginning of the internet boom. I've since been a serial entrepreneur and a physician informatics lead for an electronic healthcare record across a 27 hospital system in Northern California. All of this has afforded me the opportunity to consult across the country, working at the elbows with my clinical colleagues. Now, a common theme that I ran into as I was traipsing around the country as a consultant working with my colleagues was that the average clinician was disenfranchised. They were discontented in general with the direction in which healthcare was going. They felt that EHRs were making us less efficient and they were directly affecting our clinician-patient encounter in a very negative way. The development of much of the new healthcare technology involved had little input by those same clinicians. All of us that were practicing and taking care of patients, there was very little involvement by us in the active development process of a lot of the technology that was happening. Most clinicians felt that this was also the start of what was the precipice of a digital healthcare revolution. And now if we fast forward to current day, it became quite apparent to myself and the group that I was working with that at this late stage in my clinical and business career, that what we really lacked was a place for clinicians, our colleagues, to safely and securely collaborate, communicate, educate, and have opportunities to actively participate in this evolving digital health revolution. In addition, there were little opportunities for clinicians to invest and leverage. I always say, when was the last time that a large VC in Silicon Valley came to one of us and said, hey, we've got the next Google in healthcare, would you like to invest? It just wasn't happening. We were more in the trenches taking care of patients and having to use these new technologies. So there has to be a way for us to develop an environment where clinicians could invest and leverage their clinical subject matter expertise as advisors, as consultants for the developing healthcare and health tech innovations that were evolving. We needed a place that supported idea generation and provided the environment for healthcare professionals to actually become innovators and entrepreneurs themselves. That was when I realized that at this late stage in my career, I needed to start Global Health Impact Fund and Global Health Impact Network. My vision, our vision as a group, was to create a clinician-founded, funded, and managed network of professional, specialty-specific, and special interest-focused communities that actually promoted active participation and created the appropriate ecosystem necessary to support everything from idea generation through innovation, entrepreneurism, and then acceleration of that innovation, and finally commercialization of those ideas into actual digital health successful exited companies. We never anticipated a global pandemic in the process. We started this about 4 years ago. And as horrible and terrible as the pandemic has been globally and worldwide, it has also provided an acceleration for the need of this technology to facilitate care at a global level. So here we are 30 years later, attending a global hybrid clicks and mortar, as I refer to it, summit supported by those technological advancements. Today, I'd like to welcome all of our clinician colleagues, both live and virtual, doctors, clinicians, health professionals, as the founder and managing partner for Global Health Impact Fund and the founder and chief executive officer of the Global Health Impact Network. It's my pleasure to talk to you about our fund, which is what I'd like to focus on right now, what we do, how we try to inspire you to be a part of the innovation ecosystem. At Global Health Impact Fund, our primary ethos is that innovation happens best and most efficiently when you, the clinicians, are involved in the process. By that, I mean that if you have an idea, a solution that you think can transform medicine, transform healthcare, your best partners early on will be those individuals like myself and our network, and organizations that implement, understand, and work with solutions such as those on a daily basis. As clinicians, we're in the trenches. We're doing the work. We're here taking care of the patients. We are the ones who understand what needs to be developed and what needs to happen. We understand how it happens. Bringing that ideology to the table is something that we've experienced as extremely valuable at Global Health Impact Fund, and soon you'll hear about the network. As GHIF, as we endearingly refer to it, we are democratizing investment opportunities. For the last 3 years, we have invited physicians and other accredited clinicians to be part of our fund through small investments. We've been able to raise almost $10 million in capital, and we've invested in what certainly I and our group believe are 10 amazing market disruptive health tech companies. These companies span the gamut of global digital health solutions that can improve childbirth by monitoring fetal oximetry non-invasively through the abdomen. A point-of-care sleep medicine platform where now a sleep medicine study can be performed at the point of care at the patient's home as opposed to in a sleep medicine clinic. And then the ongoing remote patient monitoring and care of that patient happens at the point of care. A musculoskeletal compliance and remote patient monitoring platform, which now allows physical therapists, orthopedic surgeons to actually track the progress post-operatively as well as post-chronic condition in terms of the progress that they can make with therapy and being able to monitor progress and success at the point of care. We have the telemedicine solution that promotes transparency and specialty-specific clicks and mortar care. We have a CT angiogram artificial intelligence solution, that's a mouthful, helping to predict and promote early stroke and cardiac disease in a non-invasive way. It's a solid distribution of companies that provides a risk-stratified, diversified investment opportunity for our clinical colleagues in a way where our investors also have the opportunity to participate in the due diligence process as subject matter experts, as key opinion leaders, and post-investment to actually not just be a passive investor, but to actively participate as advisors and consultants for our portfolio companies that we've invested in. We are very proud and excited to share our fund portfolio with any potential interested accredited clinician investor. We've leveraged our entire process on our proprietary hands-in platform where our investors promote and act as advisors and consultants with those companies directly on our collaborative platform. And we're very excited about the success and growth that we have by leveraging that with new follow-on funds that we'll be developing. I'd like to invite you at this conference to consider the role that you could play in innovation and the role that you could play in venture capital. We need your help. We want your help, not just as an advisor, but as an active participant in our growing global collaborative network. We encourage you to join us and to be part of the process. As I mentioned, we're going to be raising another fund shortly, and there is still opportunities to invest in our current fund that is closing shortly. There are also opportunities for individuals to advise the fund and just participate without making an investment, become part of our fund network and our Global Health Impact Network. We leverage our Global Health Impact Network and our proprietary secure encrypted GHIN hands-in collaborative platform, and we have been very strategically positioned to support our companies post-investment because of that. Firstly, as we identify companies, part of venture is finding the best companies. What we refer to as getting deal flow. Leveraging the expertise of our clinician investor network, we've been able to do that really well. We also have terrific partner networks, and we're affiliated with many of the major medical institutions and academic institutions throughout the country by leveraging the connections that our investors and advisors have domestically as well as globally. Our experience so far is it helps to have other physicians and other clinicians looking at deals with us. We get practical insider insights that are easy to understand. We have access to our clinician insiders, which is not an easy thing to obtain. That's the value of our network as a strategic investor in many of the companies, because other organizations, it's very difficult for them to obtain those key opinion leader thoughts and input outside of if you're already involved in the medical world, so to speak. As such, we then can see value where other people don't, where other venture entities don't. Once we've decided to make an investment, we found tremendous power coming from the collaboration and feedback from our Global Health Impact Network. This is real value in terms of supporting the companies towards a successful exit. When we mean exit, we mean either an IPO or a merger or an acquisition where now we've made an investment and that company then turns into a liquid event. So, of course, when you invest in venture, you want to obtain an exit, right? So your investment is illiquid when you start. As I mentioned, you own shares or some sort of security, and a company at some point, they either get acquired, as we spoke of, or they do an IPA, And if they do, that illiquid asset then becomes a liquid asset. That's when we get our upside of the investment. So that's the goal in venture capital, to transform a company, to help scale it, make it impactful, but then as an investment to get that liquidity event. We help those companies do that. Throughout our network, we've helped our portfolio companies through the implementation of pilot studies, introductions to hospital systems. We've built focus groups from our clinician network, and we help with recruitment of executive teams post-investment. We can identify chief medical officers that are appropriate, and clinical studies and researchers that can help in helping a company develop their idea and then show how it's clinically effective. We've been able to collect those resources, foster collaboration with our clinicians and our companies, and develop those processes. So I invite you today to consider what your role could be. You could be an innovator as a physician or a clinician innovator. How can you add value to our investment process as an investor, as an advisor, as a consultant? We will allow you to target which companies you could add value to. We allow you to leverage your clinical expertise in a very targeted way, and to then focus on your interest and seek out those experiences that you're looking to have and gain through our network. You all have hugely valuable knowledge and experience that these companies want, and often have a hard time finding or getting access to subject matter experts like yourself. Throughout this conference, you're going to hear a lot about how to be involved. Our charge to you in this introduction is to say that there are really opportunities out there. Find the one that works for you. Look at executing it, and then go for it. Get involved and actively participate in the fund, in the network. Global Health Impact Fund and Network needs you. We want you, and we really appreciate that you're here at this conference and taking an interest in everything that we do. If you're interested in learning more about the Global Health Impact Fund, of course, we'd always love and need more advisors and more investors like you. You can reach out to anyone on our fund team directly. I'd like to now take the opportunity to chat a bit about Global Health Impact Network itself. As we mentioned earlier, a Global Health Impact Network is a gathering of professional, specialty-specific, and special interest communities. We promote collaboration, communication, active participation, and education by clinicians in the evolving digital health revolution. We've developed a proprietary hands-in platform through our partnership and investment in Hands-In, which promotes safe, secure, video encrypted, and asynchronous collaboration and communication by our clinicians. We've grown our clinician and health professional network organically from a global perspective over the last year and a half. We have about 90 communities that we've created across professions and specialties and special interest areas. Examples are physician and clinician burnout, blockchain in healthcare, AR and VR in healthcare, assisted intelligence and machine learning in healthcare. And then we have many innovation-specific specialty communities as well. We currently have close to 1,000 clinician members, and it's our goal over the next 24 months to grow globally, and our target is 1 million members globally. We're in the process of creating Global Health Impact Network in Africa, in Europe, in Israel, and many other global locations. In addition, we're also working on a very large network in India. You'll hear a lot about this at the conference from our clinician and health professional community leaders, and it'll be across topics from our collaborative network. So at this point, I'd like to bring back Martin, and Martin and I would like to have a little conversation just about what we're doing with the network, what our plans are moving forward, how we plan on growing it through developing a finance and investment in healthcare network, an education network, and we're also just beginning our new MedLabs Accelerator program. Martin.
Thanks, Gary. It's good to be back. So, let's kick off first with, let's talk about MedLabs and the accelerator we're doing there, because I know it's one of the biggest things we're doing this year. So tell us the story. What's MedLabs?
Great story. So, one of the fund partners, Oren Aloni Charis, who's one of our managing partners of the fund, made an introduction to Ella Lee, who's the CEO of ZGC. ZGC is a global capital organization whose parent company is in Beijing. They have numerous innovation hubs globally, including one in Boston and one in Silicon Valley, which is right down the block from certainly from many of us here in the Bay Area. And when we were introduced to Ella and their Silicon Valley group, they were in many verticals, but they were not in healthcare, and they were very interested in entering into the healthcare vertical from a capital perspective and from an innovation perspective. When they found out about Global Health Impact Network, they were very interested in partnering with us, because what we brought to the table for an accelerator, of course, were all the mentors and advisors and clinicians from a global perspective. So it was kind of a marriage that was made in heaven, so to speak. So we spoke for a couple of months and then decided to build the MedLabs Accelerator, which is an accelerator, a global accelerator focused on promoting innovation in healthcare, everything from early stage seed idea generation through Series A kind of companies.
Great. I know I'll speak with Ella later on, so it's going to be exciting. And then I think what I want to talk about next is something, I'm going to be very close to, the finance and investment community. What's the purpose in your vision for this community?
Great question. And I'll take maybe a little step back and say, the focus and purpose of the network in general is to create an agnostic environment, through the platform that we have. And if, you were to compare it to what's out there already, we've kind of taken the functionality of a LinkedIn, a Slack, a Dropbox, and a Zoom, and put it into a HIPAA compliant, secure, encrypted environment, allowing that kind of collaboration. So the idea being, again, we're not trying to be like Medscape or a clinical Doximity. We're more focused on innovation and acceleration of ideas in healthcare. So we want to be agnostic. Yes, we have a fund, but at the end of the day, when you make an investment, even as a venture fund, it's usually a syndicated collaborative investment. It's never just one VC. It's usually some angel investors and other VCs, and they come together to accelerate and invest in a company. So it's always a collaborative encounter. And the goal of the network is to take not just the clinical side or the clinical innovation side, but to take every aspect of that ecosystem of idea generation through commercialization and foster that kind of collaboration. So where better to start when we started with a fund than to focus in on the investment side of things, the finance and investing. So we're creating a global network community of other venture capitalists, other angel groups, where we can come together and focus in on how do we identify those best technologies? How do we leverage our network of clinicians and subject matter experts and key opinion leaders in a way to make it available, not just for GHIF, but to make it available to these other organizations which may not have easy access to it. So that really is the premise of creating a finance and investment network. And then, of course, hopefully we'll talk a little bit about the education side of it as well, from an innovator as well as an investor perspective.
Yeah, so all right, let's touch on education just a little bit, because I know Bob Sweeney's going to talk about that later in a little bit more detail. How does the education and the network kind of join together?
Great question. Thank you for asking it. Of course, I certainly have a passion for it. I didn't go through my serial entrepreneur experiences, but my first company back in the early 90s was one of the first continuing education platforms, where we took, in a time when we were using 56K modem dial-ups and the Yahoo portal had just come out, we had developed a way to create and then deliver and use continuing education over this new internet idea. And it was an early idea. We developed one of the first internet-based learning management platforms to develop and deliver that content. But there were no talking heads and videos in those days. It was more white papers. I don't even think PDFs even existed at that point. And we started that, and it was very interesting for me because I had never had any business experience prior to that. And I went out and I was able to write a business plan in the middle of that internet boom that we talked about, and went out and was able to recruit numerous clinicians, physicians at the time as investors, as advisors, and we built the CE channel. Now, the CE channel ultimately was acquired by Med Challenger, which is one of now 25 years later, the oldest board certification, recertification, continuing medical education platforms that's out there. And the CEO at the time was Bob Sweeney, as you mentioned, Bob. And Bob is now a partner in our fund, and he is the director of education for Global Health Impact Network, Education Network. And so the concept is, again, not trying to be just a clinical continuing education network. We're bringing in every aspect of, again, the ecosystem of what we talked about. So how does an individual clinician educate themselves about becoming an innovator, becoming an entrepreneur? How do I start a company? How do I invest if I just want to be an investor? What if I'm so busy, but I'd really like to leverage my subject matter expertise as an advisor, as a consultant? We have all of that being built in our educational network. And then we also, again, in the idea of collaboration, have gone out and partnered with larger organizations like Med Challenger, like Med Forums. We're talking to Mockingbird, one of our potential investments and accelerator cohort companies, to be able to pull all of those ideas together into a more global educational environment that gives access to our individual clinician and health professional members to educate themselves about all of these things. And, even have the opportunity to maybe get some continuing medical education at the same time as they're learning.
Yeah. So we've mentioned collaboration several times. Like, how important is collaboration, not just like among investors, but among physicians and clinicians? And, second part of the question is, if anybody who is interested in collaborating with a network, how do they do that? What should they look for?
Great question. Well, we'll start with the first part. So it's interesting. It's been very educational for me, again, in 35 years of practice, that I've been, we're very big as an anesthesiologist. I'm very focused on there's a term we use in healthcare: keep it simple, stupid. So, the more simple things are, the less chances there are to make mistakes and the better an outcome. So from my perspective, I've reduced everything to a collaborative encounter, whether it's a patient and a provider, whether it's a provider and a provider, whether it's a provider and an organization. No matter what it is, it's all a collaborative encounter. And we're very lucky to live in a time where we have all this technology that promotes that kind of collaboration. So for me, all of those are encompassed in what we're creating within the network. It's providing all of those different parts of the ecosystem to collaborate, but to do it, again, in a way, we're all on the other social networking, platforms that are out there, and they're all great, but they're not exactly very secure. You don't always know who you're talking to. If it's a bunch of clinicians talking together, the last thing you want is a number of non-clinicians sitting in the same room listening to what are probably intended to be very secure conversations. And I'm not going to throw out any names, but we all know what I'm referring to. So there was no good place for us as clinicians to come together to discuss these kind of topics in a secure environment. So that was the idea of creating the network in this collaborative environment. How can individuals get involved? Very easy. Go to www.globalhealthimpactnetwork.net and join. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. All of the resources within the network are essentially free. And again, it spans the ability to collaborate, communicate, actively participate, educate, potentially invest through us or other opportunities. All you got to do is join and actively participate. And we are trying to build it out in a way as we move forward to leverage what's out there: gamification, tokenization. We're trying to reward our members for actively participating and doing the things that they want to do anyway. And that's really the mission and vision of the Global Health Impact Network.
Okay. So a question that's close to my heart is content. We've had so many conversations about this. How can an organization or clinician, join the network and get that content out there?
Right. Well, so again, the network being composed of communities around special interest areas, professions, specialties. So we can get as 10,000 foot as I hate the term AI, but I'll say assisted intelligence and machine learning. I don't believe in artificial intelligence. I don't even know what that means, frankly. But technology that supports our ability or improves our ability to more efficiently and effectively take care of patients, right? It's not intended to replace us. It's intended to make us more efficient, right? So we can get as global, it's a good example, as AI in healthcare, but then we can get as granular as anesthesiology, artificial intelligence in healthcare, okay? So any individual within our network can, first of all, create a community if they have the membership to bring it in, right? Through, and again, it could be supported in other places like LinkedIn and Instagram and all of that. We're not only focused on GHIN, but that's a place for us to securely collaborate. So they can do that. And then they can also join communities. Again, they are secure communities. So again, if a cardiologist is trying to join the anesthesiology community, they could get in, but they'd have to ask. Whereas we have public communities, private communities, and any individual within a community can post on our threads, can present content. Again, we do try to, within the network as we're building it, it's a verified, validated, credentialed environment. So we're trying to really control the content to an extent that's in there, as opposed to just letting all comers in. But any member of any community can post and foster additional collaboration. They can promote educationally content. They'll have the opportunities and the technology to do that as well. It's actually quite easy to do.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to add? Because if not, then I think I'm going to open this up to a Q&A session for the audience to ask questions, because I know they must have.
Great. Not really, other than I'll say is, we really would love to talk to you as a potential member for our network. We would love to engage you as an active participant in our fund, in our network, in any way, shape, or form. We're all your colleagues and your clinician colleagues, and we're very respectful of how busy we all are, especially in the middle of this pandemic, which hopefully is starting to wind down a bit. But it's a way to really expand your practice experience in many ways outside of just the clinical aspect of it. And we all find it very rewarding and love the collaborative aspect of being able to work with you as a member and address your desires and your ability to participate in the evolving digital health revolution. You can reach me at either one of my emails. It's Gary@globalhealthimpactfund.com or Gary@globalhealthimpactnetwork.net. You can reach us on our websites, which will be all over this conference. And we just thank you for attending the conference. I hope you enjoy the conference, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Awesome. So yeah, let's jump into the Q&A session.
Okay, great. Okay, that should be better. Okay, I'd like to again welcome everybody to the conference. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my long-winded description of the fund and the network. It's been a great trip getting here, and I'd also like to thank Uli Chetapalli and the Innovator MD Conference for us as a sponsor, giving us this whole day to promote Global Health Impact Fund and Global Health Impact Network. I'm going to look through some of the questions that I have. Apparently, I have two microphones on. I don't know how that is, but let me close all my microphones. Just give me a second here. No, shouldn't be here. I only have one microphone on, but I will close everything else. So I'm just going to bring up some of the questions that I had. I apologize for this little delay. Okay, so questions. So there were questions, first of all, is how does one become an advisor or a mentor in the network or in the fund? Just feel free. We posted it inside the chat. You can reach out to me at my email at gary@globalhealthimpactfund.com or globalhealthimpactnetwork.net. And feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to share information about both the fund and the network in response to that. You can also go to our websites, which would be for the fund, www.globalhealthimpactfund.com, and for the network, www.globalhealthimpactnetwork.net, not .com, for the network. The network is expanding globally as we speak. We're looking at having partner organizations in India and Africa we're exploring, and Europe and Israel. So there's lots of opportunities to expand the network. So that's how you would become an investor and advisor. Let's see. So Joyce says, I'm working with a few early stage startup teams for RPM, blockchain, home care, provider engagement, antiviral treatment, focusing on COVID. I would love to share what we have. So that brings up another point. So our network is not just a network of only clinicians, but we are creating an ecosystem around innovation. So we do support everything from idea generation all the way through commercialization on the startup side. We support clinician innovators, clinician entrepreneurs. So any organization that we just started, as we mentioned, the Med Labs Accelerator, we're building an innovation hub. As a matter of fact, Uli and I have been talking about that. So the idea is that at any stage of a company, you can step into the network and leverage the communities around specialties, professions, and special interest areas, as well as the communities that we're building around the entire ecosystem of taking a company from idea generation through commercialization. And we will work with you. We will help you. We're creating a finance and investment network, which is partnerships with other venture capital funds, other angel investment groups. We're looking at democratizing the investment process for clinicians. So no matter whether you're an EKG tech or whether you're a cardiac surgeon, there will be opportunities to participate as an active advisor or mentor and to participate as an investor in the process. And when it comes to the companies, they're welcome to come and participate in our accelerator or just to participate as a supported company. If we're going to accelerate you, you will go through the due diligence process just as if our fund was going to invest in you, because we are trying to become the good housekeeping seal of approval for healthcare innovation and startups. So we will work with you to refine your idea, your management team, and your presentations. So startups are welcome. Reach out to me the same way. How do we spell the other network that I mentioned? And that was to Ella. So there's the ZGC Capital group, which is our partner in the Med Labs Accelerator with Global Health Impact Network and Global Health Impact Fund. And that all could be found if you do a search for Med Labs Accelerator. You'll be able to find the website and information for that as well. Joyce asked another question. Do you support, invest healthcare-related products, techs, and companies? Our initial fund, which I mentioned, was focused mostly on digital health and digital innovation, but our subsequent funds that we're starting are going to be more focused more globally on health tech, Bell Tech innovations in healthcare. So we are open to looking at any healthcare innovation companies. So the answer would be yes, and you can reach out to us that way as well. Does GHIN make profit, and how does it do so? Great question. As a matter of fact, we're evolving right now. We're looking at creating a non-for-profit arm and a potentially looking at a foundation fund for very early investments in early stage idea generation companies. And there are also many health tech companies that need clinical validation. studies that need to be done. So we're looking at having a non-for-profit vehicle for investment early on, which then would be followed on by the network support, the accelerator support, and a for-profit model for investment. So the network itself makes most of its profit, and we're in the very early stages of this, by the way, through our relationships with the startup companies, through education opportunities that we provide. We're building the network in a way where the members are also investors in the network and have the opportunity to invest directly in the network. So as the network grows by working with startups and its valuation increases, the members themselves benefit as well. So that's another way. Of course, sponsorships, but in a very agnostic way. So the network is built on a credentialed, verified environment. So unlike some of the other social media, when you're a clinician in our network working with companies, it's in a very secure environment, our hands-in platform. And everyone that you're speaking with, you know who they are on the other side of it. This is not an all-comer network like a Clubhouse or like a LinkedIn. So we do bring in sponsorships in a way that is somewhat agnostic, where it's those organizations, healthcare organizations, that want to get exposure to our large clinician network. Okay, so that's that question. Let's see, one says voice, not able to hear. Well, hopefully that's fixed. Am I the only one? Okay, so no, it sounds like we've got the video component fixed here, and I'm checking my text. Let's see, everything's working great now. The United States is the epicenter of COVID-19 pandemic due to the tens of millions of illegal immigrants. If we couldn't count these people, how could we control COVID-19? Well, that's a great question. Not really related to what we're discussing today, although we are looking at many health tech and companies that are addressing the problems related to COVID-19. I think, as I said earlier, health tech has been accelerated probably close to 5 years in 1 year, because we've shown the gaps in the healthcare technology system because of the stresses and requirements that's been imposed on us by COVID-19, and we are far from out of this. So I think it's imperative that what we're trying to do, again, is the whole premise in which I founded this fund and network was the idea of promoting active participation by clinicians in this process. One of the biggest complaints that we've had and concerns by healthcare providers is that we've let healthcare get somewhat out of our control. So this is the purpose of this network and fund is to improve and empower clinicians to be active participants in these solutions with a goal of one thing, improving the patient-provider interface or collaboration. So how do we leverage technology to improve our workflow as opposed to make it more complicated like electronic healthcare records have done? That's just one example of the direction in which this evolving digital health revolution has gone, and we're working to change that. Let's see, what else do we have? Any integration, cooperation between healthcare startups? Absolutely. Great question, Hanan. I love that question because the whole focus of our fund and our network was to foster collaboration with synergistic investments and synergistic portfolio companies. If anyone's ever been to the HIMSS meeting, which is coming up again very shortly, it's 2 football fields worth of hundreds of companies that don't talk to each other. And it's one of the reasons that we are where we are with electronic healthcare records and developed a system without interoperability. So it's our goal to invest in companies and to work with companies in our network to foster that collaboration in a way where we can together as a network bring solutions to the table that can speak to each other and can work synergistically. So thank you for that question. June, it sounds like you help people match for innovations, organization, and individual expertise and fund investment. I'm not exactly clear how people get paid per individual negations. Well, again, so I guess the question is how if I act as an advisor or a consultant in the process with companies. How am I compensated for that? So from the very start, it's been about 2 years now, the very start of our growing our network and our fund, those clinicians that actively participate in everything from due diligence through the commercialization process as advisors and consultants have relationships with the companies that they work with. So they're not being compensated for by the fund or the network. They're being compensated by the portfolio companies that they work with. On the network side, what we're building right now is with some blockchain technology, and you're about to hear from Alex Kahana shortly, who's helping us with this, who's a global expert in blockchain and healthcare. We're building into the network an idea of tokenization and gamification so that when our members are actively participating in events, in educational endeavors, in just collaboration across our different communities, they will be rewarded with a set of points that can be used for other services within our network, for CME, for credentialing services, and other partner services that we have. So that's on the individual member side. And on the startup side, the startups benefit by having access to our accelerator services, our financial and investment network services and matching, so that we're not just interested in getting funding for just Global Health Impact Fund, but also our partner funds. Because in the venture capital world, which was educational for me when I first started this, it's really less competitive and more collaborative and syndicated. So it's very rare that just one VC or one angel investor invests in the company. It's usually a syndication of a number of different types of investors. And we have other partner networks that are out there. We have Startup Health. There's Angel MD. There's a lot of other organizations which we're looking to be agnostic with and work with to help improve and foster the digital health revolution and health tech. So that's that. And I don't see any other questions. Maybe what we can do now is show a little video about, so we do have our platform. Oh, wait, there's another question that popped up. Any use for newly graduated outpatient primary care perspectives for consultation at GHIN? How do you recommend to start outside of building connections and joining networks such as GHIN, SOAP, Innovations, MD, etc.? How do you recommend to start outside of? Well, I guess if this was a question of here I am at 64, I've been doing this for 35 years in healthcare, serial entrepreneur. If I were starting over with all of the opportunities that young people have now, young clinicians or even pre-medical school, and want to get involved, there are lots of social networking and organizations like what are mentioned here. SOAP is great, Arlen Meyer's organization, which is a non-for-profit, and then Uli's Innovator MD. We're all collaborating together with the same goal of improving healthcare through leveraging of the clinicians and clinician entrepreneurs. So I would say just join the network. It doesn't cost anything to join the network, no matter what stage you are. We're out actually now starting to develop out different sectors within the network. So there'll be students, there'll be residents and interns. There are nursing network communities that we're building. So all the specialties, all the professions and the different levels will be represented as we grow out the network. How significant is your collaboration with the medical startup companies in Israel? Well, our second investment was a company here who is now in Cupertino that came out of Israel. It's a market disruptive technology. It's called Sensifree. And Sensifree has developed a non-invasive way of monitoring blood pressure in a B2B way in a medical grade perspective. It's being studied in operating rooms and ICUs. So now, theoretically, at some point, a watch will be able to give you beat-to-beat blood pressures in the consumer sector, but in the hospital sector, what would have previously been an invasive procedure by putting an IV into an artery can now be accomplished by just slapping a EKG patch type of monitor over your radial artery or some other artery in your body, And as an anesthesiologist, we can use this in the OR. And before, we would only use this for medically complicated patients. We could use this in virtually every patient moving forward once this is FDA approved, and they just submitted to the FDA. So we work closely with Israel. We have a relationship. As a matter of fact, my partner Bob Sweeney and I are attending a conference in Israel in December, which is a health technology conference. Our partner there, Dr. Benny Zevi, who's a cardiologist, is working with us, and we're looking to build Global Health Impact Network Israel with their clinicians. So we absolutely do work with startup companies globally, including Israel. Is there any traction to fund for CRISPR startups and biomedical research companies that is resource intensive? Yes, as a matter of fact, as I mentioned earlier, we are building out the network for very earlier stage companies in those areas from a foundation perspective with one of our new strategic partners that we're working with. And yes, absolutely, we would entertain those kind of investments. And then let's see, at Manoush second this question. Okay, so great. So you've got an answer to that. I think that's all we have here, unless anything else pops up. So again, I think we'll stop here, and I'll take the opportunity to thank everybody for attending this conference, for being here in the middle of the week, listening to what GHIN and GHIF have to offer. We've got a full day packed of interesting talks. In about 10 minutes, we have, as I said, Dr. Alex Kahana, who is an anesthesiologist and global blockchain expert, who Alex is a good friend, and I've known him for quite a while now, and he's going to educate us and enlighten us about blockchain and distributed ledger technology and how it could be leveraged in healthcare. You know, I think many of us, when we hear blockchain, the first thing we think of is Bitcoin, but blockchain technology is much, much more than that and can affect many areas within healthcare, both on the patient and the provider side and the data integration side. So with that, I'll stop. And blockchain and credentialing, absolutely, and we can, he'll be addressing that.